national conference last year. I haven't learned any more words. Although I do know cachaça now. So thank you again to Pela for having me here this year. It's an honor to be working with all of you. The growth of the student movement for liberty in Brazil is tremendous to watch, and I'm always impressed when coming at these conferences with the level of knowledge all of you have of libertarianism. I've been in a lot of countries on multiple continents with libertarian student activists, and the students in Pela are second to none in terms of your knowledge of libertarianism, so you should really be proud of that. So today I'm going to be talking to you about activism for liberty, and in particular why I think it's so important. I'm sorry that for the last speaker of this great conference you have to listen to a gringo who can't speak any Portuguese. But hopefully you'll be able to follow along with me. I've got a presentation to help you get a sense of what I'm talking about today, if your English is about as good as my Portuguese is, which is no. Again, I'm in I have the position of International Programs Manager at Students for Liberty. For those of you who don't know too much about Students for Liberty International, we're about 6 years old now, and we began as what we call a roundtable discussion of leaders of student groups for liberty in the United States. And there's a couple of these leaders who knew each other through their summer internships, but there was no real connection between these various student groups for liberty. And so they wanted to think of ways they could kind of connect each other and provide support and get to know each other. The kind of things that you guys are all doing now, being a part of Pela. And so all of those ideas in terms of connecting and getting together and providing resources is what gave birth to the organization of Students for Liberty. And the general goal is to provide support for student leaders and student groups who are passionate about liberty. Now, we tried to define liberty in as broad a sense as possible. We have classical liberals, we have objectivists, we have anarcho-capitalists, and everything in between. Just like I've gotten to know, at this conference, you have that same variety. At the same time, we do share some certain principles which we think are very important to libertarianism or classical liberalism. This is support for economic liberty, the freedom to engage in commerce, to trade with who you want to, basically to earn a living in whatever way you want to, so long as you don't harm other people. Similarly, we feel it's important to stress the value of social liberty, the freedom to live your life as you choose, how you order your family, what religion you practice, what you say, who you associate with. Again, only restriction really being respecting the rights of other people. And the third pillar that is important to Students for Liberty's conception of liberty is that of academic liberty. So freedom in the university setting, the ability to think freely, to express yourself freely, and to join groups and associate with one another. Again, simply respecting the rights of other people. I think that's really important to Students for Liberty's mission, is that third component of academic liberty, especially when it can be so threatened by universities and professors. So, under this broad base of principled libertarianism or classical liberalism, we have seen the student movement for liberty take off all over the globe. It has been truly incredible to watch how much things have grown over the past 6 years. We are a truly international organization. You all, by being here, are part of a global family of tens of thousands of students who are developing a passionate interest in libertarianism. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what exactly is going on all around the globe. But I promise you, it is both extremely exciting, unprecedented, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. And another really important aspect of Students for Liberty's mission is activism for ideas. A lot of our students get inspired by certain politicians. I know I first heard a lot about libertarianism from Ron Paul, who I believe was just here last week. And while I think Ron Paul has done a great job of spreading the message of liberty, as have some other politicians around the globe, the mission of our organization is really activism for particular ideas. Things like spontaneous order, free trade, individual rights, rather than any particular people or policies. And so we've seen this model take off all around the globe, this activism for ideas type model. And it's important for me to talk about what I think activism really is. Because activism is not just some kind of libertarian thing. It's something practiced by people of various different political ideologies. I think activism, first and foremost, is about visibility, bringing an issue to people. So if you have an incident where, say, an innocent person was shot by a police officer, even though they weren't unarmed. This recently caused a big media publicity in the United States, and people were understandably upset about this. You want to bring that issue and use that issue and bring visibility to the larger issue of, say, abuse of police power, lack of accountability, need for limits on government, including the police powers. So it's taking things that grab people's interest and bringing visibility to light of a larger issue that you're passionate about, such as possibly abuse of police powers. Another similar example would be whenever your country possibly wants to go to war, which where I live in the US happens far too often. And you not only want to be active in fighting that particular instance of going to war possibly, but bring it to the larger issue of what is a sensible foreign policy in the modern age. So if I was still in university, which I would have been this time last year, not only be demonstrating against, personally I would be at least, not only demonstrating against going to boots on the ground against the Islamic State, but also putting it within the broader context of a non-interventionist foreign policy. Only using your military powers for self-defense. So the first issue is visibility. And once you can grab someone's interest and tie it to a larger issue that you're passionate about, now you have the opportunity to persuade them. Now, if you're having some kind of protest on campus or events, I don't think you're going to be able to persuade them to be a hardcore anarcho-capitalist on the spot. I don't have a whole lot of success in that respect. But you could possibly make the case for your stance on that particular issue. It's a winnable battle. At least get them to consider it. And this is an important step. If you can show them your viewpoint on one issue, wrap it into a larger context, you're making some progress. And no one's views change overnight. But if you can make small steps towards planting that seed of a classical liberal or libertarian view of politics, you're making progress. Activism is very much about organizing. If you're unable to organize while you're an activist with other people, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to be that one person holding up a sign in the middle of campus that everyone is laughing at. I've been that person. When I first got to Michigan State University, we call it a freshman, we have what we call a student organization fair. I don't know if you have something like that at these universities in Brazil. Basically, all the student groups can set up a table and talk about what their group does and try to get people to sign up and join. And so this is actually the day before my first day of classes. And I see a sign, Michigan State College Libertarians. Yes! I go up and talk to the guy who's running the table. And I'm like, oh, it's so great, I've heard about this Ron Paul guy, I really like what he has to say, I want to get involved. He's like, oh, that's awesome, and I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to meet the other group members. He's like, oh, you think there's other group members? You're funny. He had actually just decided to start it up over the summer before the semester had started. And it was literally just him and the sign he had made on a poster. And so, through years of activism, we kind of grew the group to a nice community of people who cared about classical liberalism, libertarianism, cared about the different issues. We all had our different backgrounds. Some were objectivists, some were anarcho-capitalists. But it really began with two people. And we had to slowly grow and organize ourselves and become a group that was, guided towards some goals. And that brings me to the next step of mobilizing. It's one thing to get someone interested in your group. It's another thing to lead them to action. A lot of people will, say, I'm interested in libertarianism, but I don't really see a way forward. We're such a minority in society, so many socialists or statists around me. I don't even know where to start. And so if you want to be an effective activist who can mobilize other people, you need to give them some kind of hope and vision and a plan forward. And again, the goals can be really daunting. Well, the opposition we're up against is very fierce. You can't change someone's minds overnight. But if you can show people that there is a way towards slowly changing people's minds on particular issues and leading to some progress, it'll give them some hope to stay involved and be mobilized towards action for your group. So what does activism actually look like? Is the pictures up there? Can't really see. Thank you. Okay. So again, Students for Liberty is an international organization. It's really cool to see how the simple model is applied in all different parts of the world. So in the top left, we have the Arizona State University, Students for Liberty in the US. And that's a protest they held on campus to fight a smoking ban that their university implemented. In the bottom left, you see a Liberty Leadership Hangout hosted by one of our executive board members in Nigeria. And then on the right side are two free speech walls. The top one is in Venezuela. Yep, Venezuela. And the bottom one is in Delhi. And I think we see all the different aspects of activism in these ideas here. So in the top left, the smoking ban case. A lot of students in university smoke. I think you all know this. Some regular smokers, some socially, every once in a while. If you try to ban smoking on a university, your students are probably going to be pretty pissed off. And so this is an issue that, regardless of whether someone's a libertarian or not, they very well might feel passionate about it. If they're a smoker, they're not causing true harm to someone on campus. And so you can bring visibility to how this infringes on people's rights, make your argument for why this should be banned, and then tie it to the broader issue of libertarians trying to fight back against, trying to tell you what you should or should not be doing, what you can put in your own body. And this is a really good way to reach young people who don't want to be told what to do, and tie it within the broader libertarian mindset. In the bottom left, the Liberty Leadership Hangout. This is a strategy session they had to talk about what they were going to do with their different student groups, what their plan was going to be for the year. How are they going to effectively mobilize people towards action? And the free speech wall. Free speech walls are awesome. Have any of you been involved with the free speech wall at your university in Brazil? No? Okay. You guys should definitely give this a try. This is awesome. Basically, all you need to do is put up some kind of wall or poster or a piece of paper and give people pens and markers to write on. And they can write whatever they want. They can write Liberdade, they can write Menos, Marx, Mas, Mises. I think that's Spanish, not Portuguese. I don't know. They could write something pro-Marx, I don't know, whatever. But it's a really fun opportunity to allow people to express their voice. And I'm pretty sure every human being in the history of the world has wanted to express their voice. So it's a really easy way to get people involved and talk to them about the problems of free speech on campus. Talk to them about professors who abuse their power, university policies infringing on people's free speech rights. You can reach all kinds of students through this way and tie them to the broader issue of whatever your issue you're passionate about within the libertarian framework. So, if you got a good conception of what activism is, and all of you who are here, I think you already know this stuff. Many of you are probably already involved as an activist. Hopefully this gives you a framework for explaining to other people why they should get more involved, why this is so important. If you can make the case for why activism needs to happen, what does it take to actually make this happen? First and foremost, it's about leadership. It's about being that person that other people look to when times get tough. When you're facing steep opposition, stepping up and taking on the challenge. Doing whatever is necessary to achieve your goals. An important part of leadership, again, is about creating a kind of a vision and a plan for your group. When you're a libertarian and you kind of have the minority voice in politics, it can be so frustrating, and you need someone with leadership to give give your group a tangible plan they can look at for, okay, what is the next step I need to take to make some sort of progress, to feel like we're on the right path. It takes commitment. Activism is not a one-time thing. It's not even a one-year thing. It's an ongoing challenge. For as long as humans are on the earth, some will want to use power over others, and there need to be libertarians that are arguing for checks on power. It's always going to be necessary. It's an unending mission. But it's also worthwhile. We've seen throughout human history numerous victories towards restrictions on power, towards individual rights, towards a free society. And so committing to defending those rights is absolutely important. In order to be an effective activist for libertarianism, you need to know libertarianism. You should take some time to deeply read some of the important thinkers who have made contributions to our arguments. You should also probably study non-libertarians. You need to know the best counter-arguments you're going to face, and understand that there are smart, sensible, well-intentioned people who are going to disagree with you. And you need to be able to make your arguments within that civil context against people who disagree, but on respectful terms. It's going to take integrity to be an effective advocate for liberty as an activist. You're going to face some rude people. You're going to face people who want to use their power over you. You're going to face people who don't take you seriously. But you can't cut corners. You can't disrespect other people's rights. You need to be an example of what kind of a civil person would be like in a libertarian society, because they're going to judge your ideas based upon how they judge you. How you act is absolutely essential to being an effective advocate for liberty. Similar to the commitment issue, is it's going to take dedication. There's going to be rough days. There's going to be days you want to give up, but you have to keep fighting towards a goal. It's going to be a long-term battle, but it is definitely worth it. And it's also going to take responsibility. When you're the leader of a group, when you're leading other people, you're going to have to delegate powers and responsibilities and share different tasks of what you're going to be doing. But sometimes people are going to screw up. They're not going to follow through with what they have to say. And effective leaders step up to the challenge and take it on, and do everything that needs to be done to achieve their goal, regardless of how difficult it may be. Next slide. So I want to tell you about someone who has what it takes. This is my colleague, Olumayowa Okadiran. Olumayowa basically started by himself African Students for Liberty. In 2012, he found Students for Liberty online and applied for one of our programs. The Campus Coordinator program was designed for students who want to run libertarian student groups primarily in the United States. He lived in Nigeria. We're like, I don't know how you can run an American student group in Nigeria, but we want to help you out. And so we've gotten him more involved with the organization over time, and the work he's done is truly amazing. Last summer, Olumayowa organized the first African Students for Liberty Regional Conference in Nigeria. First ever conference on the continent. They had over 350 students there, turn out for a libertarian conference in Nigeria. Truly amazing. The work he put in to put the details of the conference together, tell students about it, help them get there, because transportation is terrible in Nigeria, make sure they had housing, make sure they could have people to contact in case of trouble. All this, a tremendous amount of work. And that conference alone has had huge spillover effects for the student movement for liberty in Africa. Just 1 year later, in July of this year, they went from 350 students in Nigeria to this year's conference, 1,170. Students in Africa are dying for opportunities. They want a way to provide for themselves, provide for their families, be entrepreneurs. They're not looking to harm other people. Prime territory for libertarians to be making the case for libertarian policies. And Olomayoa is capitalizing on this. He's going out to universities and spreading the message, getting them to conferences together to build this community for liberty. Olomayoa works harder than possibly anyone I've ever met in my life. And he is completely dedicated and committed to spreading the message of liberty in Africa. So like I mentioned, he's from Nigeria. And last year he ran the first African Students for Liberty Conference in Nigeria. And then he was in touch with about 3 students in Kenya who were interested in becoming Students for Liberty leaders. They knew libertarianism, they wanted to spread the message. And he's like, you know how I could really help them? I'm gonna move to Kenya for 3 months. I'm gonna build up some student groups, and we're gonna organize another conference in Kenya. And he did. He moved to Nairobi, completely picked up his life, moved to another country, settled down in Nairobi for a couple months, and organized the East Africa Students for Liberty Conference, where they had over 475 attendees who got to hear about the message of liberty because of Olomayoa's true dedication and hard work. Whenever I feel swamped with my work, or I've had a bad day and I don't want to continue on, I think, well, at least I didn't have to move to another country to spread the message of liberty. Olomayoa has what it takes to be an effective advocate for liberty, and he is my role model. I can't overstate how impressive it is to see him take up the mantle of liberty and do whatever is necessary to accomplish his goals of a free and prosperous Africa. So if you think you have what it takes, what are the kind of things you'll need to do to be like someone like Mayoa? You're going to have to be bold, and he certainly is. You're going to be taking risks none of your friends are taking. They probably won't even understand it. Your family won't understand it, I guarantee you that much. But you know what? The student movement for liberty, as it stands today, is unprecedented in history. It's a very unique creature of the internet, the 21st century, and the failure of big government in the 20th century. It's a really unique opportunity, and you're going to have to take risks that people haven't taken before. You're going to have to be trustworthy. For Olomayoa to organize a team in Africa that he's had to be dependable. For me, every day, the people I work with in Students for Liberty around the globe, I have to be willing to do whatever it takes. I have one standard for myself, and that is to never ask someone I work with to do something I would not be willing to do myself. I have to have the integrity to know that I'm going to carry out whatever I'm asking of my peers. You have to be humble as an effective activist for liberty. You have to understand that you don't have complete knowledge of libertarianism. I sure don't. Don't have complete knowledge of our opponent's arguments. Don't have that either. But based on the limited knowledge I do have, I want to try to make the best decisions I can to grow the message of liberty around the world. Similarly, you need to be strategic. Again, I talked about how activism, in my mind, is about raising awareness for an issue, making the libertarian case, and then mobilizing people towards action. What's tricky about this, and I'm someone who is dedicated to activism and wants all of you to be activists, it is extremely rare, close to 0% of the time, will even really well-organized activism change the policies you're trying to change, especially in the short term. It's very tough. It's just not going to happen. Mass protests tend not to lead to policy changes. However, the goals that we are trying to achieve, when we look at activism strategically, is raising awareness of issues, making the case, and slowly changing minds one issue at a time towards a libertarian framework, having them be open to libertarianism, maybe embracing it on a few issues, and hopefully exposing them to deeper arguments that will make them get to know libertarianism in a more deeper sense. And ultimately, it's all about working hard. It's putting in the days that our leaders do, doing whatever it takes, no matter how hard or long it takes you, or crazy, including moving to another country. At the end of the day, the activists who are successful are those who work hard. It's plain and simple. Is this going to work? Probably not at first. I thought the first time I was going to go out and be active with my College Libertarians group on campus with my new friend Colin, our group of 2 people, I thought, oh man, at the time we were planning to invade in, I think it was Syria, United States. And I was like, oh man, we're gonna organize this anti-war protest. Students are gonna get fired up. They're gonna join us, and we can have this big, great picture to put in the newspaper, show how mobilized students are. We're out there with our signs on campus. A few people say hi to us. A few people say they agree. Nobody really wants to get fired up. Nobody wants to get involved. It's tough. I think we got maybe 2 new people interested in joining the group that day. But at the same time, we had some really successful events where things did turn out well. When we had a free speech wall on campus, we had so much excitement from students. So many people wanted to get involved with our events, wanted to read the books we had that day to learn more about libertarianism. There's going to be good days and bad. But ultimately, I think we have the potential to win. And I define win as having freer and more prosperous societies where individual liberty is respected more often among the people. This picture is from the latest International Students for Liberty Conference. We hold it in Washington, D.C. every February. Again, 6 years ago, we were able to organize, I think, around 100 people. Now it's 1,400, and that's just how many we can get out to Washington, D.C. It doesn't take into account the awesome events like this that are happening all around the world. Yesterday we had a conference in Paris, France for about 120 kids. Yeah, libertarians in France, if you can believe that. No, it's great. All around the world we have leaders like you who are learning about libertarianism, mobilizing towards action, getting together in groups, in events and stuff. The momentum is really exciting, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And I think we have what it takes to move towards a more libertarian future. But along the way, it's not going to be an easy ride. What are the problems that we're going to face? First is going to be misconceptions. I think you all have experienced this before. It's very rare for someone to actually know pretty accurately what libertarianism or classical liberalism is all about. Oh, you're just a hardcore right-wing fascist. What, are you getting paid by the US FBI trying to overthrow my government? So you have to just be mindful that a lot of times it's not necessarily out of bad intentions or malice. It's just people might not know what libertarianism really is, It's not taught that often in school. It's not, historically hasn't been that prominent. So, just try to be respectful, level-headed. Hey, no, we're just about individual rights, including yours, so, just trying to help you out. You're going to face apathy, lack of interest from students sometimes. It can be frustrating, just like when I'm out there holding my sign against anti-war and I see all my peers who I think are pretty anti-war, but they're just not as interested in getting mobilized. It's going to happen. You just have to, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Eventually you'll find some people like all of you in this room to join you. You're going to face loneliness, especially when you're a group of 2 people on campus. But it gets better. Again, you keep trying, you put yourself out there, good things are going to happen. This generation is really open to libertarianism. A lot of the institutions of government are just outdated in the 21st century. And there's a lot of opportunity to reach young people, if you just keep trying, keep putting yourself out there. You're going to be let down by your close friends who are part of the group with you. The college libertarians group I had on campus, I made some of the best friends I had in college. We ran some great events together. We went out to bars and had a good time together. We went to football games together and had a good time. But there were times where, I counted on my buddy Colin to, set up the table on time, and he's not there, and it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, you told me you'd be there at 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock, and you're not there. It's going to happen. This is what happens when you work with young people, when you work with college students. But all you can do is just be the best possible example you can be. Show the way forward in terms of being a responsible and hardworking activist. And you're going to face people with power. You're going to face student unions. You're going to face university professors. You might face some local politicians who are unhappy with the message you're spreading of libertarianism and want to try to shut you down. and silence you. It's going to happen. You have to fight through it. You have to have integrity. And you have to continue to look towards the possible future you will have in terms of success. So let's say you're trying to make this case to someone who's interested in joining your group but doesn't know if they really want to put in the effort to be, some kind of group leader. Why is this worth it? Next slide, please. No, previous one. Okay, thank you. So why is this important? Why should we even bother with activism for liberty? First of all, it's important for people to know that you are not alone. A lot of the stories I hear from people who are now involved with Students for Liberty or Pela, it typically starts off with, man, I thought I was a crazy person. You read some Ayn Rand, some Rothbard, you see this really exciting ideology, and no one you know shares it with you. It can be a really lonely feeling. It's important to put yourself out there, though, and let other people know there's a huge international movement of people who share these beliefs with you and want to learn about these ideas and advocate for them. Another reason is that SFL and Pela are growing drastically today. It's really exciting to be a part of this new student movement for liberty that's so young, but growing so fast. Despite this, though, our success is not assured. The opposition is fierce. The forces of statism are still very strong today. And it requires action by people to actually fight for liberty. It's probably not going to fight for itself. The ideas of libertarianism have been around for a long time. But the ideas alone will not bring about change in our society. People need to act upon them. People need to take action to advocate for and defend individual rights, free markets. Simply, the cause of liberty needs you. We have the right ideas. What we need now are the right leaders who are willing to take action for liberty. So you get someone on board with this message, and they're like, okay. How do I get started here? What's a good starting point for people who are kind of new to this whole activism for liberty thing? Pela has an executive board who was up here earlier, regional coordinators and local coordinators who can help you, find a group in your area or start up one if there isn't one in your area. A good way to get started is just have some sort of event about a topic you may be passionate about, or a speaker you can bring to campus to talk about an issue in libertarianism. Start a reading or a discussion group to learn more about one of the classic texts of libertarianism. One big thing that we do in the US and in other parts of the world, I don't know if it's particularly popular here in Brazil, is what we call tabling on campus. So you just set up a table on campus, plop your banner or poster down, and just talk to people as they walk by. Say, hey, do you know about libertarianism? Are you interested in learning more? Do you want to get involved? A lot of people are going to walk past you. A lot of people are going to say no. But maybe you'll find one person, and then you have one more member of your group, and that can be pretty cool. You don't know what that one person will go on to accomplish. And making connections is really important to being an activist. You have a room full of people here who share your interest and dedication in liberty. Take advantage of these opportunities. You never know what kind of connections are going to come from, or what will come from these connections. When Olomayoa applied for a leadership program for American students, it was kind of an odd connection considering he lives in Nigeria. But from it was born African Students for Liberty, an organization that's doing amazing work today. So you can get started by being that one crazy person holding a sign and saying, don't go to war in Syria. It may feel silly, it may feel like you're not making a lot of progress on that first day, but you gotta just jump into it. You gotta just get started somewhere and get used to putting yourself out there and advocating for the libertarian case of certain issues. And I have one last thought for you after making this case for being an activist for liberty. Something I've been doing for about 5 years now, and I think is really important. I hope you'll continue to be involved in it. The last message is don't stop reading. Don't stop learning. Too many people think there's some kind of dichotomy between being an activist or being an intellectual. I think being an activist for ideas is the best possible form of activism. Get to know the best arguments for libertarianism. Get to know the counter arguments, and be prepared to make a strong case in a civil discussion about libertarianism's pros and cons. So again, if you're already involved with activism, thank you. It is important to be fighting for the cause of liberty in Brazil, and I hope you will continue to keep up the fights. And if you're new, I hope you'll get involved. And if you're someone who has been working with the group for a while and you feel like things really aren't growing, use some of these arguments to get other people involved. Maybe you know someone who knows about libertarianism, likes the ideas, but hasn't done a whole lot of activism work. You need to stress them that the cause of liberty needs them. This is an important mission, and while we've had the ideas of liberty for a long time, we need the right leaders. Thank you.
Se vocês quiserem fazer perguntas para o Matt, fique à vontade. Se quiserem falar em português, eu faço tradução, não tem problema nenhum. Aí você vai com o microfone.
Hi, Matt.
Bom dia.
Thank you for the speech. It was really nice. Matt, I would like to know how's the academic environment in the United States if the Marxism is strong like here in Latin America? If not, what the mainstream ideas of the American students?
It's a great question. So Marxism in American universities is not as strong as it is here. It definitely seems strong here. It's strong in Africa as well, some parts of Asia. So you guys aren't alone in that respect, so you have some common allies. I don't know if there's like a common framework that really ties the American intellectuals like Marxism has in parts of the world, but there's definitely just a big deference to authority. That's unquestionable government authority is a big thing, and so kind of trying to bring about the counter argument of we need to question these things. Everything should be intellectually on the table. We should be able to question everything. And another big problem we see is American professors, especially sciences and sociology, they're happy to talk about market failures, but they never talk about government failures. And so just simply introducing this cost-benefit analysis of saying, okay, we have problems with markets, they're imperfect, but there's lots of problems with government too, and let's actually compare them side by side, is I think the best way to address a closed-minded mindset of only focusing on market failures. I believe someone has a microphone.
Matt, you used to talk about how the libertarian movement is growing around the world and how the way that libertarians position in each kind of environment around the world is different and how they can adapt to it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to talk about what SFL is doing around the world a little bit. So, like I said, Students for Liberty was kind of born in the United States, but at our first ever conference, we actually had a student from the country of Georgia, and then one from Guatemala, I believe. It was before I was involved, but I believe that's correct. So technically, it's always been international. But the first place that things really took off after the US was Europe. And it was because there was a student there who wanted to start European Students for Liberty. Just like Olomayo wanted to start African Students for Liberty. It comes down to leadership. And today they're really thriving all throughout Europe. There's really no place where European Students for Liberty isn't today. Former Soviet Unions, we have an upcoming summit in Ukraine later this year. Everywhere students are taking to it. And the different countries in Europe kind of have a different focus, right? So like in Spain, students are really worried about fiscal problems and monetary policy. In France, taxation is kind of out of the roof right now, and they want to worry about generational warfare with these problems. In Hungary, they're literally fighting fascists these days. The rise of right-wing nationalism is a problem there. So it's all over Europe, but it's kind of, different contexts based on national politics and what matters. Besides Pela in Brazil, all throughout the Spanish-speaking Latin Americas, there's organizations involved with Students for Liberty. Victoria Ramirez is here; she can tell you more about what they're doing. But they've got a big conference coming up in Guatemala next month in October, which is really exciting. I've touched a little bit of what Olamayoa and the rest of the Africa team is doing, but nowadays they've got these two big hubs. In the western area, it's around Nigeria. In the eastern, it's around Kenya. And they're trying to, turn this interest in entrepreneurship and free enterprise into, a better sense of a fuller libertarian framework. We've recently started up growing operations in South Asia, around India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan. And there they face a lot of the problems in terms of Marxism in universities, the team there is really excited because there's just so many people to draw from in Asia, right? You can get 1% of your university and it's already huge. But it's the task there is also kind of formulating a libertarian identity when there really isn't one there compared to definitely the United States. Even here, there's more of a classical liberal tradition than there is typically in Asia. And we're also seeing a lot of really exciting developments in Australia and New Zealand. They had their first regional conference in July of this year. Good turnout for that, and a lot of exciting things there as far as the students. So, short story is basically we're everywhere where there's people. The biggest challenges are probably East Asia and the Middle East, both in terms of there's a lot of people in power who don't like libertarianism and will be willing to use force against you for even arguing it, and also cultural problems because there's less of a history of libertarianism, not none by any means, but less compared to other areas. And a lot of this battle for libertarianism is changing people's perspectives towards that mindset. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a taste of where things stand today.
Hi. Here in Brazil, we are kind of spreading the liberty ideas on the internet, making fun of Marxism idea. Do you think that's a good idea to do or not?
It's a good idea, but it's not enough. To go into that a little bit more, you really can't underestimate the importance of meeting with people person to person. I think, that's where you build connections, that's where you build a community, and to some degree, people, build an identity around that. Your entire identity shouldn't be, I'm a libertarian, that's who I am as a person. That's because, you don't want your entire personality to be your political ideology. But it should be an important part of who you are, in terms of being a part of this community. These are where my friends are. This is where I learn. This is where I produce making my society a better place. Internet has been really important to growing libertarianism in the modern era. Students for Liberty would not be an international organization without it, but in-person interaction is absolutely essential to building a global or local community for liberty.
Hello, my name is Bruno. Very nice, congratulations. There are many issues that left people and libertarian people agree and have the same opinion. Do you think we should have some kind of a strategy to target this kind of people or not? Do you think libertarians should grow with other kind of people?
Definitely. So, when working with the left, in my experience, and this is true in the US, in Europe, in Africa, and all over, the best way to work with people of a left-wing ideology, I think, is to oftentimes say, on a lot of goals, we agree, it's the methods. Now, there are some aspects of left, saying the left is a huge spectrum of things. So, if they're